This is Wilson Morales from Black Screen TV. We're talking to Matty Rich regarding the 30th anniversary of his second film, The Inkwell. Welcome, Matty. How's it going?
I'm doing good, brother. Can you see me okay?
I can see you. I can see
Yeah,
you.
I'm in,
You know,
I'm in the
so
I'm in the editing room right now on my new project. So Birth of the Black Underworld, which you saw the teaser that we screened at the Essence Fest last year and won the audience award. So that was real cool.
okay, so it's good to see you still continuing to work. The Inkwell was your second film. Obviously, everybody knows, you did quite a thing on your first film, Straight Out of Brooklyn, when you were like 20, 21 years old. Independent film that made a lot of money based on, the budget that it cost to make that film. And here you
Mhm.
are with your first film under a studio. I believe it was Disney Touchstone, and it's the Inkwell. Talk to me how that came about. Was it something that was thrown at you or something that you went after through your people?
Well, it's a very good question. So after Shred Brooklyn, I had a lot of opportunities in offers rather from studios to what would be my second film. And when I read the script of the Inkwell, it wasn't a hood movie, right? So it wasn't what people would expect after Straight Out of Brooklyn. And that was the first thing that drew me to the project is you see an African American family going to Martha's Vineyard in the summer. And you see a coming of age story of a character Drew played by Larenz Tate, who's just a kid who's just trying to find his way during his family visit in Martha's Vineyard to the Inkwell. But then I love the whole idea of seeing Black life outside of the inner city. And this is a story that we rarely see in this country. And so that was the thing that really struck me about the script. And then I said to my agents, I would love to meet with the studio execs. It was Touchstone Pictures and Disney, and had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Jeffrey Katzenberg, and he was like, "We really want you to direct this film." And I said, "I would love to direct the film." Um, and I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to cast the people that I wanted to cast, and they were behind me. And so that's how it began. Yeah.
Now, I remember reading that during the 20th anniversary, Larenz Tate talked about how Jada Pinkett got him in the film. Obviously, they both had worked on Menace to Society. Was Jada the first person cast on this movie?
Absolutely. And when I let me even back up. When I saw a sneak peek of Menace uh, before it was released, and I just knew right then and there, Wilson, like Larenz Tate was Drew Tate, right? He was Drew, and then when the opportunity came with Jada, and I'm like, that. I mean, Jada Pinkett Smith is incredible, and when Jada came on board, I just knew that the chemistry between the both of them and what they would bring would make this project even more special. But we were all so young. I was 21, right? And Lorenz just turned 18, I think, at the time, or 18, something like that. But then came Joe Morton, um, Glynn Turman, Duane Morton, Morris Chestnut, amazing people to work with. Vanessa Calloway. The cast just was incredible. But I have to tell you, it was hard work being 21 directing that studio film. The actors, they had a great time. I had a great time, but I was so dived into wanting to make this project special because I wanted not just African Americans, but other people to see our life and that there are Black Democrats and there are Black Republicans who are family. They may not agree with certain political things, but at the end of the day, they are family. And I
Now,
wanted you people to see the beauty of the Inkwell. of Martha's Vineyard. Yeah.
Now, did any of the cast members have any history with Martha's Vineyard? I know that's a place that people go throughout the summers, and because some of the cast members were young, did any of them have any history of being in Martha's Vineyard to know that experience outside of the younger cast? I know Vanessa Calloway in the past has talked about being there several times, you know, but was anybody out there giving you guidance as to how Martha's Vineyard is viewed?
Um, One person, and she passed on, Suzzanne Douglas, who is just incredible in this movie. God rest her soul. She told me a little bit about the history in that her and her husband at the time, I believe, they had a house there. I believe that she did before she passed. I spoke with her, and then I had other friends who had homes up in Martha's Vineyard, so they gave me the history. But before we actually started shooting, Disney flew me and the producers out to Martha's Vineyard, and I got a chance to see Oak Bluffs and the towns and learn the history, the African American history of what the Inkwell is and what it means. Yeah, but Suzzanne Douglas would be the only actor or actress that I work with that I sat down with who told me a little bit about the history.
Now the film comes out, and obviously anybody reading on it now would see like, oh, it didn't do well at the box
Right.
office, and the Rotten Tomato score from critics, we're going by Rotten Tomatoes, and I looked at it earlier. There's only 9 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, only one black critic. It has a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes, but an 82% from the audience. And since that time, the movie has become a cult classic. People look at it differently. And you could say that to a lot of films
Yeah.
during the 90s. We weren't getting the love,
Yeah.
whether it be by our own people, whether it be by critics. But when they, because we all know that, black films tend to do well once it comes out
Right.
on video. Case in point, The Five Heartbeats.
Mhm.
Some people get a lot of movies got a second chance because there were more viewers watching movies once it hit VHS, at least when you're talking the 90s, and DVD
Mhm.
as opposed to going to the theaters back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Wilson, when I just before the Inkwell was about to be released, I bought it back to the place that's near and dear to me is Sundance, because Sundance, I won the special jury award for the Straight Outta Brooklyn, and they're like, big supporters of mine. I didn't enter the competition for the Inkwell because it's a studio movie, but I did screen it there. And I remember Jeffrey Katzenberg saying at the end, he said, "Matty, don't worry. This is the little movie that could." And I didn't understand that at the time, uh, and because it was different for that time. And people were doing, like I mentioned earlier, they were doing inner city drama hood movies, right? And so when it came out, and people always say, well, it didn't do well, but it came out, it was number 4. Number 4 is pretty good, if you think about it. Actually, 3 or 4. It may have been 3. But the critics did not understand the movie. But I knew that once African Americans saw this movie, that they would appreciate it. And I cannot tell you how blessed I am and how I've heard from so many fans for so many years of how the Inkwell helped them and inspired them, and it's their favorite movie. And it's become, like you mentioned, a black classic film. And it's because sometimes when you, as an artist, you work on something that's near and dear, and you put it out, and you want it to connect, and sometimes it doesn't connect initially, but it will connect, and it connected. And so I am, when I say super proud of not just what I did, but everyone who was involved in the Inkwell, and the fact that it's 30 years, it's incredible.
Yeah, to know that, Jada Pinkett is still working, Larenz Tate is still working, Glynn Turman is still working, Vanessa Calloway is still
Yeah.
working, Morris Chestnut is still working. You know, everybody that most of the people, with the exception of Susan Douglas, who passed away, most of that cast are still working today. So that's a testament to not only to the talent in the movie, how they kept going. You know, what do you say to filmmakers who've had success on an independent film and they get courted by studios for their next movie? You were young at the time, and you like to think we want to get a lot of young filmmakers to make that. Sometimes some people get blessed by studio early, but then there are those who do it from the ground up, and you had it when you were 20 years old, and then you got your studio deal. Is there anything you learned from that? And obviously, times have changed. I'm talking 30 years later, but you could tell aspiring filmmakers that when a studio keeps calling, this is what you need to look out for.
Well, look, if you get an opportunity to direct a studio movie, number one, make sure that you connect with the movie, connect with the script. If your heart is not in it, people will know. If it's just a gig and job for you, I don't always think that's a good thing if it's just a job. You have to connect with the project. Now, once you decide to do a studio film, you have to understand the parameters, how a studio works. And how a studio works is, yes, they're filmmaker friendly, but they are also filmmakers also. And what I mean by that is that you can find yourself in a room of executives who went to film school, but they've never made a film. Okay. And this is their opportunity to give you notes, and notes of story, notes of characters, and whatever it may be, plot structure. And you, as an independent filmmaker, you're usually doing things yourself. You're the writer, producer, director, you're the chef, whatever it may be. But when someone is paying you in lots of money, you have to take their notes and you have to listen, right? And respect what their notes are. And there's a way that you can meet in the middle. As an independent filmmaker, I had to learn when I did a studio film, there's a way to meet in the middle. It's not always your way. It's not always their way. They may insist on you doing a note. And when I mean the word insist, that means you're going to do the note or the note is going to get done either way. So the more that you connect with the script first, connect with the executive who's responsible on your project, the relationship between the director and producer and the executive assigned to your project is an important relationship. So be friendly with that executive, because that executive will fight for you and go to the boss and say why the filmmaker wants this version, right? And why. So understanding the executive on the project, a filmmaker should be friendly with, because the top tier executives, when you're talking about the bosses of these studios, it's about the dollar bill, the bottom line. Will audiences like the cut that the director likes? And they will test screen your project. And screening means, an audience will take a look at your movie that's not finalized yet, and they'll get a paper or whatever it is, and they will rate your movie on, is it marketable? Is it fun? Or is it dramatic? Or whatever it may be. And the studio will look at that test screen numbers, and then they may determine we need to continue to edit this out or add more of this. And then this is where independent filmmakers get a little in trouble, is because they're used to, I don't need to hear an audience give me notes. I know the project as a filmmaker that I want to finish with. But once again, when you're with a studio, there is a way to meet in the middle. And the more that independent filmmakers understand that, the more you'll thrive in the corporate commercial world.
Well, obviously, time has gone by. You've done other projects. You're working on a project now. So it's always good to know that, you're continuing to work. You're not gone. We could take you off the milk cart. I found Matty Rich.
No, wow, I've been at AFI for 4 years as a professor there, and also teaching at Sundance, which is, I'm an alumni there. So I keep myself busy with working with filmmakers. And as you mentioned, I'm working on my next indie film that we wrapped, and we're in post-production right now.
Well, I'm not going to keep you up long. Obviously, go back to doing some work, but I appreciate you talking on this day. Obviously, you never know. It's like as long as you got time to celebrate it, 30 years, it's the joy of your film. I think every filmmaker wants to get his film cherished, then we can still talk about it. There's a lot of movies out there now. There definitely are a lot more movies than it was back then, and some of them you don't even know about. So take credit that this movie can still be talked about 30 years later.
Thank
Congratulations,
you.
that film. Congratulations on your upcoming project. I'm sure we'll talk down the road when it's ready to come out, and we're good to go.
And I want to thank you, Wilson, for all of your support from over the years. People, you know, you always shine light on us, and it's time for us to shine light on you, because you have, not just on this platform, but what you've done over the past of highlighting filmmakers of color, women and men. It's you should be applauded by your efforts and what you do. So just thank you so much.
Appreciate it.